Welcome to another Infographic Instant with Brian Michael. In this episode, we'll be asking, why do Chinese law firms and investment banks do so badly in the international M&A trade? First, we have to review the last infographic in case you haven't seen that. And in that infographic, we presented what was called the mystery of the advisor disconnect. And what motivates that mystery is the observation that M&A clients, both on the acquirer side and the target side, they tend not to choose advisors in their own home city or even their own home country. And we also observe, as a prelude to this infographic, we also observe that same pattern at the domestic level in China. So we see that companies at the local level in China are not using financial and legal advisors in their own home city. So we needed some way of explaining why this is. We need some theory that can help guide our understanding of advisory selection, both at the domestic but particularly the international level. Now, of course, there's two theories or two views about why advisors may be selected completely disconnectedly from the cities where their clients are based. The first view is that Chinese legal advisors and law firms have too little experience, or they're not competitive vis-a-vis their foreign rivals. So if this view were correct, then we would expect to see relatively low deal values and low deal volumes for Chinese-based law firms and financial advisors, investment banks. The second theory or viewpoint is that, well, these Chinese companies in fact need advice and expertise from the target company's jurisdiction or area, not from their own jurisdiction. So there's no sense in a Beijing-based company bringing on a Beijing-based advisor if they're going to buy a Mexican company, for example, because they need to know about the Mexican environment. Or similarly, they don't need a local advisor if they're buying a company in the western part of China, because in fact it's that area's traditions, business practices, local law, if relevant, that this company needs to know about. And what's more, if they don't need Urumqi-based company advisor, for example, then they can choose one from anywhere in China. If we accept the fact that this specific knowledge at the very local level in China isn't relevant, well, then these companies can choose an advisor from anywhere, so why not somewhere in the southwestern part of China? And so we need theories that help us understand this advisor selection process. Now, turning to the infographic, there's 3 points to keep in mind as motivation for the other infographics that we'll be presenting in this series. The first are that deal sizes are large in China. It's not the case that Chinese law firms have too little deal flow and that the value of these deals is too small relative to what their international rivals are used to in order to give business to these local companies. It's certainly not the case that local Chinese law firms and investment banks lack expertise, as you will see on the right-hand side of the infographic. That part of the infographic shows the main financial advisors listed by deal values during the going out period from 2000 to 2014. It lists where that advisor is located, and on the upper part of that section of the figure, the red part if you will, that reviews the financial advisors, whereas on the lower part of that section of the infographic, the black part if you will, that's looking at law firms. And we see that the values of transactions handled by these advisors, they amount easily 50, in some cases 100 billion euro. So there's certainly enough deal flow to think that they could handle going out advisory mandates for for different clients in the US and Europe. It's just that there's something which is encouraging clients to choose rivals in London and New York. The second point we'd like to highlight is that, well, New York and London-based advisors are important even for domestic-only deals. So we're talking about a Chinese company buying another company inside of China, and yet one or both sides of the transaction will go all the way to New York or London, in some cases Hong Kong, in order to seek their advice for this completely domestic transaction. And you'll see in the left-hand side of the infographic the number of transactions where these leading foreign advisors have received mandates. The third part or point that we would like to highlight is that, well, the little advisors are still there. It's not that these large Beijing and Shanghai based advisors have wiped out the smaller advisors. So you see in terms of the number of mandates received by advisors in smaller cities such as Tianjin, even though it wouldn't be right to call it a small city or small advisors by any stretch of the imagination. We also see legal advisor cities in Hangzhou, Hefei, Jinan, and so forth. You can see the infographic in front of you. This has been another Infographic Instant with Brian Michael.